Okay. He is the right second for the third consecutive race. It is the 17th time in NASCAR history, dating back to 1975, by the way, that someone has finished second in at least 3 straight races. Then they would lose playoffs or something like that. I mean, yeah, is Adam Bowman now the San Francisco Giants of the 19...
I mean, his average is 2.0. His finishing average is 2.0 over the last 3 races. That's incredible. I mean, that's Jimmy Johnson numbers in his prime, kind of, if you will. So I think that Bowman, the one thing, he should have had that race won. He should have had it. And, this is my opinion, but, he's still a young man. He still has, some learning to do. And Brad Keselowski took the All-Star race, rather, or if he gets to the, when we get to the Coca-Cola 100, he's in that one as well. So that's always kind of he has a history of, unexpected winners. So I'm not telling Alex Bowman short by any stretch. I think he's definitely got a win coming soon, very, very soon.
I'd be surprised if that didn't happen either. Interesting that you said 3 straight second place finishes before the first Cup victory for Bowman. But I also went through the records by the 17 times. Like I said, first started in 75. Richard Petty finished second, I think, in 3 straight races. And all the greats have been there doing it. Pearson was there, Waltrip, it seemed. But only one time did that trifecta of second place finishes, or runner-up finishes, if you will, include Bristol. And that was Kevin Harvick in 2003. I thought that was kind of interesting, because, I mean, obviously...
You mentioned Petty. Now, I may be wrong on this, but for some reason, something's in my mind saying this is accurate. In addition to the 200 wins he had in his career, I'm pretty sure he had like 30, maybe 40 runner-up finishes. I'm pretty sure about that. So, think about how close he would have been to having 220, 230, maybe even 240 wins, that kind of thing.
Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I guess the big controversy was, let's see here, Eric Jones, the block of Clint Boyer. Boyer has now come out and said, boy, I should have wrecked Jones. I know NASCAR generally doesn't like such honest statements. I do. I'll bet you do, Jerry, because they make our stories and our shows a lot more interesting to talk about. But what do you think is going to happen to Clint Boyer here?
I don't think anything will happen. I mean...
Not even a fine or anything?
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, the thing is, it was in the heat of the moment, and Clint is very much of a guy that, shoots from the hip. He's the nature of the sport, but I think that, come next week at the 600, I think that they'll essentially, get it made up and, they'll go forward. But I mean, I like Boyer. I like him a lot. I think that he's very refreshing. He says what's on his mind, and that's why fans like it. But, one of the things too, keep in mind, Marky, and we talked about this last came down on somebody, and instead of blocking or wrecking the other guy wrecked Tony. And then I think it was Talladega, I remember, and it caused like a massive pileup behind them. So, again, it's 50-50 on people's perspective on blocking. Personally, my opinion, I'm not a big fan of blocking. I think that it does detract from another guy having a chance to win. I mean, look at it this way: we just got Louisville, the Kentucky Derby in Louisville a couple weeks ago, and the horse that won the race was disqualified for blocking or have some kind of penalty in NASCAR.
It's interesting because Clay Travis had said, that's our morning show, Outkick the Coverage, and we were running the promo that, geez, I didn't know you couldn't block in horse racing and all this. And we did have Teresa Gennaro of BrooklynBackstretch.com come on recently and explain that actually you can get out of your lane, but you have to be so far ahead to do it. Then, that sort of thing in horse racing. What I think, you talk about how times have changed. I remember doing a story for Sports Talk, which, Jerry, was a local sports magazine. Jeff Birchfield and I both wrote for it, as a matter of fact. That was almost a generation ago. In fact, it was a generation ago. But when Dale Earnhardt had died, I had interviewed Steve Blevins, who was a radio broadcaster around here and the Performance Racing Network. And I remember there was a lot of talk that a pick, to talk about blocking, that Terry Labonte had run at the end, in the last lap of the Daytona 500, had caused the Earnhardt wreck. And Blevins' take on that was, well, wait a minute. So what if he did run a pick? That's part of racing. Why are you getting on him? And so it's intriguing. But yeah, that is sort of where the philosophy, as you mentioned, kind of changed. And of course, ironic because, as you also say, Earnhardt was just, great at it back in the day and such. I want to change the attention a little bit to IndyCar racing. We just had the Grand Prix, and the Indianapolis 500 is...
So many drivers. They got, 5 drivers in the race. Penske's got 4. You got the Chip Ganassi guys, Dixon, defending champion, 5-time champion now. I mean, this is probably setting up to be the 500 that has had the most storylines probably in a good decade. I mean, there is so much. Jack Harvey finishing on the podium for the first time ever, over the weekend in the Grand Prix. I mean, that's a huge story. I mean, James Hinchcliffe didn't qualify last year, got bumped on.
often in this, but you're mentioning now maybe IndyCar catching up a little bit and such. Is there a chance by any chance that the Brickyard could have close to a capacity of the 257 it has, or what do you expect to see in terms of an attendance at the Brickyard for the Indianapolis 500?
In the early 90s, and the place is packed, but I would say they're probably going to close to 300,000. That place is about 300,000. I expect a near sellout. It's not a complete sellout. I mean, I think, like I said, a moment ago, there's just so many storylines coming out of the Indy Grand Prix that, there's so much interest in IndyCar. The ratings are up. Interest globally is up. I know that Mark Miles, chairman of IndyCar, he was overseas this past week or so, talking about rights overseas and, international. Big thing. This is a very big thing. The Indianapolis 500 deal. I mean, it could certainly set the tone for IndyCar going forward, and even a greater increase in popularity as well.
You know what I found to be intriguing? Brad Keselowski won in Kansas, getting back to NASCAR, okay, Jerry? But we're talking about who finished second so much at Bowman. That's more about him all the time. I mean, so I find that kind of intriguing, right? That ironic. The NASCAR season heads to the All-Star race has become ironic. By the way, just going back with this, the last question, since the All-Star race is up. A couple of years ago, you said, they might change the venues of the All-Star race. Maybe Bristol could get one. That doesn't seem to be on the horizon in the near future and all that, but I don't know. Do you think that in 5 years this race coming up will still be in Charlotte?
Charlotte, and I wrote several columns back when I was working for Yahoo Sports about that. My mindset has changed completely, though. I mean, I love Charlotte Motor Speedway. They do a fantastic job there. But an all-star race, I'm definitely much more open to seeing it, rotate to other venues. I think Bristol would be the most logical first place to go to after Charlotte. I think it makes sense, and I think that place would be hopping. I mean, I think that would be a very, very large crowd. I wouldn't even be surprised to see the All-Star race draw more fans than the two regular Cup races at Bristol. So, I mean, ideally, Marky, if this was an ideal world, if I was running NASCAR, my opinion is let's alternate. One race, Charlotte, next year, go to Bristol. Next year after that, go back to Charlotte. Next year after that, let's say go to, let's say, Daytona or somewhere like that. I mean,
I get that.
But the thing is, the All-Star race, let's look at all the other major professional sports. Every All-Star event they have goes to a different city. So why not NASCAR?
Yeah, interesting. Of course, some would say that, what is the All-Star? Just an exhibition and all that. Of course, they say that about every All-Star game, too, this sort of thing. Regardless, intriguing right there. I guess one thing you could say is they used to say that opening day had to be in Washington, D.C., too, and then the Senators moved, and we didn't have that for years and years and years until the Nationals came back. So there you go. He's Jerry Bonkowski. We'll have him back. The All-Star race and ask more questions about the motorsports in general. Tri-City Sports Now.
If you love